Greetings and welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, trying to be smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. So Koth, his eyes uncovered. I am your captain, Myrriah Gossett. With me on the view screen, we have
Clyde Haynes. You know what's better than a spaceship? A spaceship shaped like a face.
And Pariah Fitachit. Waka, waka, waka.
Tonight we are going to talk about the two-part season premiere of season 4 of Lower Decks, starting with Twovix, which is directed by Barry J. Kelly and Jason Zurek, written by Mike McMahon, as well as I Have No Bones, Yet I Must Flee, directed by Megan Lloyd and written by Aaron Burdett. But just a couple of reminders before we dig into these episodes. Paul, where can people listen, subscribe, share this show?
Oh, hey, if you guys want to subscribe to our podcast, we're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. You can find all links at StarTrekPod.co. And if you love our content, and we hope you do, for just $2 an episode, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/StarTrekPod. I was just thinking, do people find our podcast elsewhere before because the people who can hear this actually hear this. So
they do. So I mean, I always like to plug where you can hear us, because sometimes these random platforms like to go down. We used to also be on Stitcher.
Gotcha.
So
interesting.
We try to keep up the links of where you can find us. Also, so that people know if they're like, oh, I have a friend who doesn't have an Apple iPhone, how else can they listen to this show? I listen to on Apple iPod, Apple Podcasts. That's that term. That's it.
You got it.
I got it. I found it.
Myrriah with her eyes open. Boom! Again.
Clyde, how should people interact in the chat tonight if they want us to catch what they're talking about? If they're watching,
write us a letter. You can just address it, get a stamp. No, seriously, if you are watching us live, you're watching us on YouTube stream, and you want to participate, there are a couple things that you can do. One, you can type capital P, capital O, capital T, capital Pod in the chat, and we'll take a look at your question, your comment, your funny joke, your commentary, whatever you're talking about. We'll take a look at it, and if it's appropriate and interesting, we might even read it on the show. Now, when we get to that special time, you want to let us know what you thought about the episode, what your general perusings are. You can type capital HF in the chat, and we'll take a look at that. And if you are a Patreon subscriber, we have a message from the menagerie, which is a
so perfect.
Funny title. Perfect. But if you are one of our patrons, you can drop us your thoughts kind of in our message from the menagerie thread, and we'll read those. We'll definitely get to those on the show. And you can, drop us notes as you're watching and really participate kind of live for us. So yeah, that's how you can interact with us in real time.
Indeed. Okay. I think it is time for us to get into some It's time for some hot breaks. Do you guys want me to read some of the messages from the menagerie first while you're collecting your thoughts, or do you want to go off the dome and you're ready to go?
No, let's hear from our wide and listener base.
Our amazing patrons. So James Worm says, I think William Boimler is on that mystery ship. Interesting prediction. Karen Hotfreak, I like how they just plopped the message. Wait, I can just ask for what I deserve out there. I had more bark laugh moments out there in the Twovix ep. I'm usually more just highly amused throughout Lower Decks eps, but I was taken by surprise to a lot of moments that just startled a laugh out of me. There seems to be an unusually high body count going on. Pondering emojis. Also, Moopsy. That cracked me up every time. Don't know why. Takako says, Hot Freak Harry Kim mannequin with one pip, LOL. I love that Lower Decks episodes always manage to strike a balance between shenanigans and sincerity. Twovix made Twovixing a verb and reinforced their friendship despite their promotions. I Have No Bones, Yet I Must Flee had a rampaging Moopsy, as well as Mariner and Rutherford maturing a bit. Also, that mystery ship that attacked the Klingons and Romulans, was that a reference? Are they the big bad of the season? Is it Badgie? Is it Peanut Hamper? My guess, someone new? All of them? Who knows? Keen says, Hot Frank, please give us more T'Lyn. Her scenes with Tendi are hilarious in an understanding Vulcan sort of way. I wish we had gotten some cameos from the Voyager crew. Tahana seriously needs some therapy. So those are some messages from our menagerie. And again, you can join us at patreon.com/Star Trek Pod and let us know what you thought about these episodes early. And we can get them here on the podcast, even if you don't watch us live during the chat. Okay. Clyde, what did you think about this episode?
So,
I think we'll probably just talk about both, so you can give us your hot freak of both.
So the first thought that I had was, it's been a while since I've watched Lower Deck, so I haven't really gone back and watched a bunch of the like last season's episode. We've got a whole crew that does that with the watch-alongs in our Slack, our Patreon squad. I was incredibly pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed these episodes, and it makes me want to go back and watch for the Easter eggs and I wanted to go back and watch the first episode again just to see if I could identify each mannequin. Because I was like, wow, it goes so fast. They're so rich. So from just start off, I was like, oh man, I miss Lower Decks. I'm enjoying this. And again, I think the thing I love about Lower Decks that we see right from the beginning of the first episode is this idea of not taking ourselves too seriously. Twovix, they came straight out of the gate, and in one moment, you had all the reverence of Voyager, which I was really excited about. And they took a shot straight at Twovix. And then the whole idea of, well, Janeway did something amazing, and just decide, she straight murdered that dude, right? That's the brilliance of this show, that it takes these very subtle shots at things that we should be questioning at a show that we love, but in a way that you don't really get offended. I mean, I really thought that first episode was brilliant, and now we have this new big bad. And then finally, the thing that I think was that I actually felt myself wanting is Rutherford and Tendi to get together. There was this moment where I was like, oh, this should be the meet cute. Yes. So I enjoyed both of these episodes. I really enjoyed them both.
Paul, what are your hot freaks?
I have to say, I totally lost my shit. Especially out of the first episode, it just came out swinging, and there are so many references, and I was going oh my god, this is working on so many levels. It's almost like art watching it. How fast they're able to give a reference, and I'm oh, this makes sense to the person who doesn't know the reference. This makes sense to people who knows reference. It all works. It's true to the universe that's in. It's all, and so it's really top notch. And I was just, I really enjoyed how basically the entire episode, the first one, was a low key roast of Voyager, and how
in the best ways possible.
It's with love and reverence, but some of these plots were stupid, right?
If you're gonna break the Voyager ship, you have to break it a Voyager way.
It's done. You do it with love, but it's like family roasting family kind of thing, where you're it was just so you're in on the joke if you have that history with it, and it's just so good. I have to say the macrovirus episode, in Voyager, not one of the best. It's a little dumb. And the fact that they choose and the fact that they choose to make that the central conceit of this episode, of that storyline, hilarious. So I thought it was just, and the other episode was great. It was fun, and but I just felt like the Voyager episode was a great encapsulation of what a 7-year series could be, just sent up in such a way. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. The first episode, I truly was laughing before the jokes really even started, because the second that they say things like Janeway had to have had a great way to deal with this, you're just if you're already laughing, and then they give you the punchline. So you're saying, Paul, even if you don't know, they're still delivering all of the pieces of information you need to know to laugh along with the show.
But even things like when they say that twice, and then they have what Phillips go oh, I don't know, I'm just happy to be alive here,
Yeah.
before it's revealed. So if you don't know, it's all so many levels.
So many levels.
It's so good.
And I really enjoyed, in the second episode, we get a little bit more heart. We get to see, Mariner trying to self-sabotage, but someone finally believing in her enough to be I'm not going to let you do this either. Also, I'm obsessed with Moopsie. Fully and completely obsessed with that tiny creature. I need it in toy format immediately. But I think this is a perfect 1-2 punch of Lower Decks, in that it is going to deliver on references. If you are a Star Trek fan, it's going to make you laugh, but it's also going to have some heart and some character development along the way. And I think they're really just firing on all cylinders.
Here's the thing about Moopsie that is so perfectly Star Trek, right? Is that, well, two things. One, they effectively gave a cutesy voice to a Tribble.
Yes.
With teeth.
Yeah.
And secondly, the thing that's amazing to me about Star Trek is Star Trek has this habit of taking something that looks so innocent and cute and then turning it into something so absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
That, of course, in a menagerie of all these things that looked so menacing, it's the thing that looks most closely to a Pokemon that is the thing that's going to kill everybody. That is perfectly Star Trek.
It's I love that space and the deep sea essentially follow the same rules. It's the cuter it looks, the more likely it is to kill you. Is a good rule to follow when you're underwater. I'm glad it still applies in space. Let's go ahead and start with Twovix, and then we can kind of make our way down to I have no bones yet, I must flee. We're kind of jumping back in after last season. T'Lyn has joined our Lower Deckers. What did y'all think of T'Lyn as an addition to our crew here?
I liked T'Lyn. I liked her in that episode where you did all the lower decks of the various crews, right? The various crews. So I always like her. How should I say in the best way? I think she'll play the straight woman, straight Vulcan. As far for the jokes bits, I guess, and I wonder how long that can maintain. Everyone else is so big, right? And part of the joke is that everyone is really crazy. Do you need a straight person for that? I don't know. I like her. I always tend to enjoy Vulcans. But that's the question.
I'm gonna wait and see. Like Paul, I loved her in the Lower Decks episode, kind of when we saw her and was really introduced to her and been waiting.
Yeah, for those of you who don't remember, I think it was season 2 or 3. There was an episode where we went Lower Decks on all different ships.
Yeah, I think it's early season 3.
Yeah.
And she's basically she helps. Oh, is it? No, it's the end of season 2, right? Or where basically she helps reinforce the shields or something, because she's the rebel of the Vulcans, and then they send her away from the Vulcan Academy and send her to Starfleet, something like that. Yeah. So we were waiting for her to show up. There we go. You got it, Choopy.
Yes, Wedge Douge was the episode.
Yes. Which is from season 2. Yeah. And then she also pops up in season 3.
But it's super brief. It's just enough for them to say, we haven't forgotten about her.
Mm-hmm.
And so now she's part of the crew. I feel like I've been waiting for this for a long time. This episode was just kind of okay, let's get our feet wet a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't too high, too low. It felt like Tendi kept trying to pull her into the scene. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm happy that she's here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that has gotten enough to do yet.
I did like in this episode that essentially Tendi and T'Lyn were the two sides of the Star Trek fan base in arguing the paradox that is Twovix. And so I thought they played well against each other. And it is that person who's coming in with like absolutely no emotional connection to the rest of the crew in this particular problem solving space. So I'm enjoying getting to see another character that's kind of this more sciencey. I think all of our main crew are pretty, I'd say, big characters. So I do think having a straight man is kind of an interesting addition to the foursome into the fivesome. We'll see how she fits in. I also love Gabrielle Ruiz, who voices her. So I'm excited to have her.
I think again, I see why you do it. Let's just hope that the chemistry works. But let me ask you this: let's say I were to merge you two and to Myrriah. Now, how many people on the pod would want me to split Clyde Raya into Myrriah and Clyde, or would you rather keep the sentient being? Like who's gonna
split us?
Like I know you might say that, but so is there really a dilemma?
I have always said I think Janeway was correct, and there was no other options in the space that she was in.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's like, Twovix, you're great, but like,
because for the grinder. I was like, is it a fully separate sentient being if it's just the DNA and the memories of two separate people?
Well, they go to a extreme point to make it so, right?
Yeah.
So but it's one of those things where like so is this really a false kind of like a false dilemma? Which is fine because it's a comedy, it's light, it's supposed to be. But I'm gonna like, I don't know, Tendi, are you really? Because if it was Rutherford and like and Boimler together, there's no question.
Right. Well, I don't know. Maybe Tendi would try to find a way for all three to exist at the same time. I think she would try at least. Who knows what the conclusion would be. I did like that Boimler essentially says what we all are thinking this is some Voyager deep cuts as soon as we start getting some of these hollow creatures popping up. We have, with the clown, Dr. Chaotica and Michael Sullivan, if you all remember, which I think are all Tom Paris creations.
No, the clown is a sentient, what you call it? Not sentient, but it's a program where like they came to a planet and basically all these scientists had gone into like virtual AI hibernation, and the clown eventually took over because it was like their fear, and so their fear took over, and the clown's supposed to represent fear. So theoretically, like what they did was that they just like uploaded the clown to Voyager, because the clown had captured B'Elanna and Harry Kim, I believe, and then Janeway had to trick the clown in order to release them.
Again, Voyager deep cuts.
Deep cuts. I know. It's one of those things. Like I if you've never watched Star Trek, if you've never watched Star Trek, and you decide, okay, you start off with Voyager, and you have, do you continue? You go, this is whack.
I continued and I started with Voyager.
But you go like, this is some Doctor Who crap going on here.
There's definitely some Doctor Who crap going on. Except I don't really like Doctor Who.
I know.
It's fine. I get the appeal. I did love that the Neelix cheese, which was only brought in so that Neelix could make mac and cheese for someone, is what saves the day. Unbelievable deep cut. We get a bunch of the Cerritos crew, Twovix, which I'm so glad is a verb now. Tulips. We also have Captain Dr. Meagleman. And then the transporter blob at the end. I mean, the one that really made me laugh too was like the Steven Stevens and the whale.
Whale.
What was your favorite Twovix character of this episode?
I think for me it was the captain and the doctor. Like that was just so like
Captain Dr. Meagleman.
Yes, that was just because you took a character You took like two really polar opposites characters, right? For me, you took a character I love and a character I could largely do without, and you pushed them together, and it was like, oh man! And they came in so like angry at the world. It was just kind of like funny to me.
Yeah, like I who was Shaq's? I was trying to figure out who was Shaq's blended.
I
with.
was trying to figure out who Shax was blended with as well. I didn't catch it, but I was going to say, as a cosplay, I was like, I'm kind of into that Shax for a cosplay outfit would be pretty cool.
Like, who's the Trill? What's her name? The
Oh yeah,
was it her?
Potentially.
I think it was her. I didn't see the spots though.
Yeah, I didn't see spots either. And then we have Boim's kind of trying to save the day. I really enjoyed the Mariner Boimler scene where he is trying to get her out of the goo and she's like, you got it, like, don't worry about it. What did you think of Boimler's sort of big arc here to get to his promotion at the end?
So they did something that I absolutely love, right? And that is Boimler comes into whatever room where Rutherford and everybody's being kind of like plastered on the wall, and he goes, and they're like, oh, get us out. And he's like, I got time for one, and I need an engineer, right? Which I feel like in so many shows there's this moment of like, oh, you come in and you've got this big dialogue and let me get everybody, but he grabs Rutherford, they jump in, and immediately the person comes back. And I was like, that might be one of the most accurate portrayals of enemy steps out of a room that I may have ever seen on television. Like, it was like that. And then Ransom just like, oh, like he caught what he caught. It was like, oh yeah, that was the right move. Like that I thought was a great scene and just stuck with me a little bit.
Paul, what did you think of Boimler this episode?
I thought he was great. Like, there are two, like, my two nitpicks. Remember, I lost my shit, so this is all good. My two nits to pick is that, like, I don't know if I really buy Boimler going like, oh, I'm afraid I'm gonna get a promotion and then we won't be friends again. I don't really buy that. Like you could choose something else for, like, he could literally just been nervous.
I mean, do you think it's what he says in order to cover up the nervousness, or is like this is like an easy way out? I mean, I bought it at the time, but
yeah. For me, I was going like, and with the next episode, like, and I think Nicole mentioned this, like, where I don't know if I really care about watching Mariner like self-sabotage. It's too predictable now. Like, like we've seen it too much. So I've seen it too much. So
I'll say, I think when Rutherford said, hey, I gave up promotions because I wanted to basically sleep near you.
Not creepy at all.
Not creepy at all. Sweet, kind of, sort of, in a creepy way. It's like harassment training. It's sweet if she's into it. It's harassment if she's not. But it's one of those things where I was like, I bought it with Rutherford because it just kind of made sense. But to your point, Paul, I think I let it go because I was having so much fun.
Exactly.
But when I look back at it, Boimler has been searching for promotion for now into 4 seasons. For him suddenly to be on the verge of a promotion and go, well, I don't want to lose you guys. Like, I struggle with that. But then when he gave the explanation of, look, like, by the time I came back from the Titan, like, it took us a long time for us to get back together. I want to be careful. I think that's why I bought it. But early on, what I really thought was he was nervous because he was trying not to screw this up. That felt like Boimler to me.
Totally. And I'm like, if they had just gone with that completely, it'd been fine. Like, remember Boimler, like kind of ditched Mariner to go to the Titan. So, like, that's why it took time for them to. It wasn't because he got promoted. It was because he got promoted, transferred, and didn't tell her
Yeah.
You know, like
Do you think then it's more I wonder then, it feels like it probably should have been phrased in I was nervous to tell you because the last time I didn't tell you, bad things happened, but I didn't know how to, then you get into that spiral of like, then I didn't know how to tell you. And like, what if you're also not going to get it? And then, then you get the reveal from Mariner saying like, no, I'm the one who said you should get this promotion.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like it's one of those other things where I would say Boimler, if that were the case, Boimler would have messed up when Mariner was around. Like he just kept on messing up completely. I think it all. You shouldn't pull too hard on these strings, right? Like, so like I said, like I watched the first episode and I go like, that was a really good episode, and I was about to go sleep, and then I go, oh my God, there's another episode. I guess I'm staying up till 1 a.m.
Truly. I really liked in this episode the different animation styles they used as well on the holodeck creatures. I thought was really cool. Also, the fact that we got the salamanders were Borgified, and the micro nanites, whatever, were also Borgified. It was hysterical. The curator was also voiced by Andy Richter. It took me a long time to figure that out, but I thought he did a great job and was a fun addition to this episode. Yeah, I mean, I had a really great time with it. Is there anything else y'all want to talk about with Twovix?
I had a thought, but I lost it.
Good.
For me, like another nit one might pick is that like, so how in that Klingon ship got vaporized. I was like going, dude, you showed they were the other people in like that Lower Decks episode, the Wade, DJ, whatever, like and you're like, they were kind of quote unquote good Klingons. they stopped the Packlet and the bad Klingon boss from like and so you're like going like, how disrespectful that they
take them out.
And like it wasn't like they messed up either. It was like, hey, let's blow this up. No, there's no honor in blowing this guy away. And then they go, oh no, we're going boom. Disrespect.
I did notice. So I wanted to so my first thought theory of this episode of the weird face ship that apparently has like a crazy powerful third eye is it sort of reminiscent to me, because we also get the whale ship in the
credits,
in the opening credits. And so I'm like, what would be the equivalent, because the whole theme of this season is Voyage Home, and we start with Voyager. And so
I did not know that.
Well, the poster is themed after it, right? Sure. So they've been referencing all the movies for each poster. And since we have the whale ship, I was like, what creature from now would come back in that ship that is like sending a message and destroying all of these things? So that's like where my first ponderings have gone.
Interesting.
I guess like, like it reminds me a little bit of a Voyager episode where what's her name? Nielsen's girlfriend. Well,
Kalis, or no, not that. That's no. It's it begins with a K.
Yeah,
it begins with a K.
Kalis?
No. We're bad Star Trek Star Trek people. If we don't.
Peace.
Kess. Oh my God.
Yes.
Good Lord.
Thank you. We're some of us are old and some of us are just bad.
There's been a lot of names I had to look up for this episode. Okay.
Hey, just keep in mind, it's 11:30 on the East Coast. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, keep in mind that it is like 3 a.m. in Uzbekistan. And
it's late.
I mean, I'm not there.
We're not in any of those places, but I'm just saying,
but it's late.
Places it's late.
Somewhere it's late. Not to mention Alpha Centauri. We're not even going to go to Rigel. So anyway, like Cass comes back and she's old, right? Because she's like 7, and like she's all angry and she's like blowing up Voyager and all that stuff. So what powerful character might we have to come back in that way? Because it felt like that's how Cass's ship came back. It was because the
Mm,
ship was just like floating on and then just crashed into Voyager.
maybe.
Maybe
I'm
because
not
I
saying
think
it's Cass. I'm just saying like who could it be?
here's the thing. Here's the thing that I was surprised at. We had a holodeck episode, right? So
Mhm.
from the very jump, right, from almost the first scene, we see Boimler and Ransom in the holodeck, and like, oh, so this is a holodeck centric episode. Great. I naturally assumed like, okay, so I'm ready for Badgie.
Yeah.
No Badgie. What if Badgie's in the ship?
I mean, we ended last season with Rutherford's eyepiece getting picked up by something that
Mhm.
still had the Badgie program on it. So I feel like that is probably where we're going. But the big question is who picked up Badgie?
Like and like there's this theme in Star Trek. There's I think the Changeling and Star Trek the motion picture
Mhm.
where like two things merge and become something different. So like there's an episode in the original series where this probe meets another probe and then comes back and it becomes this super killing machine, and thinks Kirk's his dad. And there's the V'ger thing, so like maybe Badgie is blended with someone
Mm.
coming back,
As Chippy just said, don't they say one life sign? Could Badgie have a life sign? That's a good question.
Mhm.
And then Takako with the best possible prediction. Peanut Hamper picked up Badgie.
Yep, Takako is the big winner today. Like saves Myrriah and myself from like having to do that. Well done.
Well done. Well done. Yeah, I mean, the last time we saw Peanut Hamper, she was locked up behind some glass. Okay. Let's move on. So if you haven't watched the second episode, we're going to go ahead and start talking about I Have No Bones Yet I Must Flee. So if you are not ready for that, you can go ahead and hit pause, come on back, because we're going to dig into some spoilers. We start out this time with some Romulans who have some banging lighting on their ship. I really enjoyed it. I also think it's funny that both the Klingons and the Romulans are both like plotting to take over their own ships as like an interesting parallel between the two cultures, and taking down their captains. And the weird headship takes out the Romulans.
And just so you know, Myrriah,
Mhm.
Clyde and I have never had that discussion about
Mhm.
taking you out. We've never had that,
Mhm.
right, Clyde? Never.
No, we have
Never.
not.
Never. Have you gotten the tea that I sent you?
You sent her tea? I sent her a mysterious package. You did? Did you get that? That didn't come in the mail?
I'll have to check my mailbox after this, see what's hanging out. I did leave. I think I did get some tea, but I left it out for my spouse. Should he not drink that?
I don't know. Like if it tastes weird, I'm sure it's fine. It's
Okay.
very
Yeah.
exotic.
Very exotic. Got it. Okay. We get a very iconic Shax and Ransom stretching scene.
Oh my God, that was that. Like I said, lost my shit.
If you put them upside, so if you don't know, if y'all are unaware, this is a very, very famously kind of cringy scene, but I'm so glad they've redone it to show that it doesn't matter your gender. You can wear these amazing outfits when it comes to Star Trek. That was Beverly Crusher and Troy stretching in the gym. If you put the scenes side by side, they do all the same stretches, like in time with each other. It's amazing.
I mean, I think what's beautiful about this is you look at it and it makes you, if you have never thought, if for whatever reason, back in 1990, whatever, you watched TNG and you saw this scene between Crusher and Troy in their, leotard stretching, and you never had this idea of like, whose bright ass idea was this, right? And what's wrong with you? When you see Shax and Ransom do it, it will trigger and go, man, whose bright ass idea was that? And what was wrong with them?
No, it goes one step further. It goes like, why the hell didn't I notice that before?
That too.
It's like the things that we accept, like right now, in 30 years, like you can close your eyes and go like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking?
Truly. I do like that this episode essentially rewrites how like sexist and misogynistic that original scene was
Uh-huh.
by being like, no, this is Star Trek where everyone wears this exact outfit when it's their cheat day and they go to do their stretches.
Well, and that was part of what I loved is their conversation was fantastic. Like it
Yeah.
was so meaningful. But they were
Oh my
like,
God. Have you tried scratching the bed and going pss, 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 about when Shax needs some advice about how to get to Anna from out from under the bed?
well,
Truly made me guffaw. Like,
well, here's what I took away from that though, right? Is I was like, I was shocked because I was like, wow, because I thought the whole Shax Tiana relationship was really secretive. And it's like, oh no, he opens up to Ransom about this. And so it showed me how tight their relationship was. I was like, oh, okay. Right in the middle of like these yoga stretches, these aerobic stretches.
Well, like one of the episode that that I first remember the stretch is like basically there was a quarter Betazoid negotiator on board, and Troy is going like, oh my God, this guy is so amazing, blah blah blah. So the fact that Shax is talking about the doctor in that way, it just parallels that
the relationship chit chat in the gym.
Exactly. It's excellent.
When you first heard Ransom say that he's not going to have to deal with Mariner for much longer, or it's not going to be his problem, what did you all think was the potential there of what he was talking about?
Yeah, like this once again, because I've been here for 4 years, right? For 4 seasons. Like you kind of know that it's not going to be what you think. It's like a Three's Company thing. Three's Company was a TV show back in the 70s, much like where Twovix happened in the 70s. Like that was another great line there.
Hey, Paul.
Yes.
Can I knock on your door?
No. I'm not waiting for you.
Everybody's waiting for you.
Where the kisses are hers. Anyway, and so like
Three's Company.
For those who don't know, like like
who didn't have Nick at Night. I used to watch that on Nick at Night. Do you guys remember that?
Man, yes. Like basically every episode, some Nick at Night.
Every episode there was a shenanigan because of a misunderstanding.
Yes.
Like something misheard. Someone misheard someone. Like in some ways, they just took a formula and just drove it into the ground season after season. And so here is the Three's Company thing. And so I go like, okay, I know what the trope is. It's going to be fine. I'm going to watch it, but like I'm not watching it for the trope. I'm watching it for the lower decks of it all.
How Lower Deck's going to play with the trope.
Yeah, exactly. I got to agree with you, Paul. So one, as much as I enjoyed the nostalgia of Three's Company, I absolutely hate that trope. Like it drives me nuts, and probably because they drove that trope into the ground. So because of that, and I think we're in the 4th season of Ransom. We've actually, I would say Ransom is one of the characters that's probably had a significant amount of growth since like episode 1. And so the idea, the minute that I overhear him say, well, she's not going to be my problem anymore, like it doesn't even, I immediately dismiss this idea that he's trying to get rid of her, because I'm like, oh, that's not his character, right? That's like, we've seen him be supportive and try and mold her. We've seen and heard him say she's a struggle, but she has the makings of an incredible officer. Like we've seen them have this dynamic. So the idea that he's trying to get rid of her, I was like, nope, this is a Three's Company episode. It's a misunderstanding, and I'm going to try and ignore it for as long as possible.
I in the arc of their sort of coming to understanding in this episode, just to keep talking about Mariner and Ransom, I did get a bit of a flashback to the episode where they're stuck in that jail and Ransom has to fight, and like he stabs her in the foot or whatever, where there's like a ping of potential romantic entanglement. And so I do wonder if they might bring that back. And what would you think if there was any kind of romance between Ransom and Mariner?
I don't know.
I've been kind of expecting it. So,
see, I don't know. Like you're dating your boss's daughter, and she's like a subordinate. That's a bad look. That's a bad look. That's not very Pike of him.
Not very
As
funny. Yeah.
as someone who is in an HR field and literally had to watch 2 hours of harassment prevention training this week, I agree with you, but I also go, Paul, it's lower decks. So like all bets are off. Like we literally have a bird-like doctor and a massive bodybuilding Bajoran security officer in doing things that I really do not want to open. I wouldn't under no circumstances am I
You mean a
opening the
cat-like
holodeck door.
doctor, not
Sorry, cat-like. Yes, not a bird. A cat-like doctor. I'm not opening the holodeck door. And poor Bert Boimler, who has to
Oh my
clean the
God.
holodeck. I was like,
Well,
ugh.
Clyde, that sounds like very anti-cat of you, or anti-Bajoran. This is not a good look.
Not a good look. Very specious.
What I'm saying is Lower Decks throws the rules out and does whatever they want to do anyway. So
Yeah.
Fair.
Speaking of Boims, I loved this C plot of Boimler Goldilocksing his way through different quarters, and then at the end having Rutherford fix the windows in like 0.25 seconds.
Like I have to say, like, you know, like for whatever reason, I could not stop laughing when Boimler went to the first room and like
Oh
his
my God.
eyes. I was just cracking up, and my wife was going like, "Is this really that funny?" I go, "Yes, I don't know why."
So here's why I thought it was funny, Paul. It's one of those things where we often think that in the Star Trek universe, everything's perfect. Like they've solved all the things that annoy us. And as someone who has used like Seat Guru to avoid the terrible seats on the plane, or if you are going to the theater or even the movies and you take way too long to pick your seat because you're like, I don't know, is this the right seat? Right? Or you've been on a cruise and you're like, I don't know about that cabin, man. That seems like that's going to be a problem. The idea that there are bad cabins on a starship is not something that I'd ever think that we've really dove into, because all we ever see is like, we may see a small cabin, but we've never seen a bad cabin. So and I'm about to laugh now, but the idea of a cabin that overlooks a nacelle.
It's like if you've ever checked into an Airbnb and they're always like, oh, it's so nice and so quiet. And then like the instant you walk in and you try to go to bed and there's just like a glaring street light and there's no curtains, there's no shades. Like
No,
it's a relatable bit. It's a relatable bit.
100%. It was great. Like I like, you know, it was I like there is some like they're hitting their comic gold here. Or they're, I hope they're not peaking, but it feels like if this was their peak for their comedy peaks, it's a good peak to have. Like, you know, it reminds me of like when Modern Family was really hitting its stride. You know, in some ways, one of the reasons why like I don't believe Ransom really getting rid of Mariner is because like there's a very family vibe about the California class. This crew, like it is like Modern Family where everyone is imperfect, but everyone wants to do the best job.
Yeah. What did y'all think of Captain Freeman, who in her holodeck exercise is the president of the Federation, and she's going to practice her scatting?
I mean, it's totally Freeman, right? Like, you know, she's stern and there's a streak of ridiculous about her.
Truly. I love that they've kept a little bit of silly with her as a character, because I think it could have easily fallen into the like, you know, we got those episodes with her where she is always like the underdog who's tired of being the underdog and trying so hard to move past that. But I enjoy the silliness, I think, of her character the most.
I mean, when Boimler is just so frustrated, but he yells out, who puts a room in between two holodecks?
Those holodeck walls are thin.
like we're hitting some things with Clyde here. You're learning something about Clyde Haynes, everyone.
Clyde's funny bone is really tickled this episode.
Man, I was dying because it was just so ridiculous, but the commentary just hit me like that's what you would say. Like, you're so annoyed, but you're like, who does this? Like,
yeah. It's like the person in the dorms who has the room that's between the laundry room and the elevator.
There you go.
It's the worst spot.
Like, why even do that? Like, make that a storage closet or something. But like, you shoved a room in there, and now somebody is just stuck with the worst room on the planet. Yes, that was hilarious. Like, I like. They're just, to your point, Paul. The comedy timing. Like, I'm hoping they're not peaking, but this was hitting it for me.
Back on the menagerie, the zoo, we have this. At first I thought this dude was like a banana creature, and then I realized he was a tree, running this crazy zoo with our Moopsie, who I'm obsessed with, and the people who ultimately set him free. But what cracked me up the most through that sequence of events was this poor ensign that was on this trip with Ransom and Mariner to kind of be, a good audience surrogate in some ways, to be like, you need to figure out your shit, like you're messing this up. But the multiple lines about like, so much for the replicated pants, like truly, I laughed a lot this episode. It was great.
No, they're starting off strong, like taking some big swings here, comedy swings.
And then man, it's so much. And then Rutherford trying to get his promotion and his repeated new nemesis with Livik.
Yep.
Livik! With multiple face.
It feels like they have exactly. It feels like Larry David's on the staff.
Yeah.
Like,
yes. There's some good bits.
I mean, you know what? Again, we talk about poking fun at Star Trek. The fact that they can so cleverly poke fun at the whole idea of a menagerie and they do it so well. Well, again, where it's this inside joke, it doesn't feel like you're not bullying Star Trek and talking about the menagerie, but it's kind of like it's like, Paul, you said it best. It's like a family. It's like you have a brother or cousin who brought home a date and everybody knew, what are you doing? And so long after they've broken up, you still remember, hey, you remember when you brought so-and-so home for Thanksgiving? It's just like, it becomes this thing. And like the idea of this menagerie and this idea, like, man, humans always getting caught in the menagerie. And the fact that they would launch that right after Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
It's like,
especially with a back reference to it, like in the very first episode.
Yeah. No,
like that was so. That's so inside joke.
Yeah,
that's hilarious, right?
Like when you were saying all that, Clyde, my first thought was like, somewhere out there, like cutaway, there's this family, and they go like, girl, remember when you brought that guy Clyde Haynes to Thanksgiving? Oh my God, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I don't do family Thanksgivings. not until we engage. It doesn't happen.
It's like I fully avoided it.
Yeah, no.
We did finally get Moopsie kind of re-confined by Mariner having to, in the least like punching someone in the face seems like the worst way possible to get a bunch of teeth out. I was like, is there really no replicator around, or just like some chicken? But like, are there no bones? There's nowhere to be like, hey, replicator, give me a pile of chicken bones. Like, it was funnier that way, but especially with his bad veneers at the end. But I thought that was pretty wild. Probably very cathartic for Mariner to get to repeatedly punch Ransom in the face. And then back to Rutherford prior to him finally getting his promotion. But I wanted to go through, he was previously offered promotions for saving the Cerritos from the Packlets, no small parts, from the USS Rubinox from the space jellyfish in Much Ado About Boimler, and Tendi got Bellows to promote him in this episode for That Time He Removed the Hull, which is from First Contact. We've talked a lot about Mariner's kind of backsliding in this episode, but do you think she actually is finally moving forward? There's a lot of conversation in the chat about people kind of being tired of the Mariner backslide situation.
Like, I don't think she, like, ultimately, like, the way that I see it, and this is just me projecting, like, although Mariner has a lot of like celebrity like acquaintances, she
Mhm.
doesn't have a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and very little I say family. And so like I think this is her family, and so like with her family, that's where you can grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not going to let her like sabotage herself, or like they're all going to grow together like here. And it does take a little bit away from like her chaoticness,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's more emotionally satisfying.
Clyde, thoughts?
I mean, I felt like it was a vehicle that we needed to see to capstone her maturity. But I didn't like what we said is we keep saying this, right? Like we hear the same thing that Ransom's talking about, right? That she's been a stellar officer, and then she keeps getting promoted and demoted, keeps getting promoted and demoted. I think the interesting thing about this situation was she talks about the fact that in the past she believes it wasn't her fault,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this time, what she's doing is she's saying, I'm going to self-sabotage because I
Mm-hmm.
don't want anybody else to do this to me. And what it makes me kind of think about is what we see Mariner was actually hurt, right? That there was a sense of loss when she was promoted and demoted, right? That she wasn't actually rebelling on purpose. She was being her, and
People not quite
that,
understanding that.
right. And I think what we see in Ransom is a situation where he goes, no, what we want is we want you to be you, because when you're you, you're at your best. And so we're not going to demote you for being Mariner. And this nonsense that you're doing right now, I'm not falling for. Like I feel like I got where they were going.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like I wish we had gotten there. I wish they had done this maybe last season. Like, could we have done this one fewer like Mariner self-sabotage? Yeah, like it's kind of we did one iteration too many.
Yeah,
but I like where they were going.
I think this will probably be the last of it that we see that's like her on purpose sabotaging, right? Like perhaps there might be something she gets in trouble. Like they're all going to get in trouble for something, but I don't think there'll be anything that's truly like her backsliding anymore.
I mean, like you could get to a point where like she has a point and then like another person has a point and they're both good points and she has to stick to her guns. Like, that's what good Star Trek is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
totally. The other thing I thought was really interesting is that I feel like I'll say I, because of this being the lower decks, I think part of what we've looked at it, Rutherford not getting promoted and Boimler not getting promoted or promoted and demoted, or, and Mariner self-sabotaging. And I think the reason why we've accepted is because largely we're like, well, this show is about lower decks. The show is about them being ensigns. If they get promoted, then the show can't exist anymore. It's kind of like the will they, won't they? Well, they won't, because you need that tension in what they are. But what they've done is they said, no, we're going to promote them and they're going to be junior grades. And so maybe they're not quite lower decks. Maybe they're lower middle decks.
Mm-hmm.
But they're showing that, hey, I don't know that we can have a 30-year Simpsons run, but we can have a run for a while, despite the fact that most people in the service typically are promoted at some point. And so that was actually exciting to me. It's like, oh, I don't know how far they're going to take this, but the show is not bound by them being junior grade officers. Yeah.
I also wonder if, I think Mike McMahon's a pretty smart showrunner, and he's, had worked on quite a few animated projects that have run for a number of seasons, but seemingly, Paramount Plus has not had anything run for more than 5 seasons besides maybe Yellowstone. So I think he's also, as much as I don't want any of our Star Treks to ever end, I do wonder if there is some grander plan or like a slight plan of action for if this series ever has to come to an end.
Sounds like a Myrriah theory to me. Are you thinking spin-off Myrriah?
Well, I think it's
and don't say peanut hamper spin-off. No, there, I said it.
I do think it's interesting that they're bringing in T'Lyn because she is like this ensign. I feel like maybe there is that chance of like, are there new characters that could come in? And they could even be voiced by the same voice actors, if you wanted to keep the same kind of vibes going. And do you just like then move to the next set of junior grades once we get somewhere?
Like make a big soap opera of it, like
right, yeah. And then it's like, and then we see them, and they are the B, the C plots that we get from our senior officers, and that's a potential.
Imagine like a cartoon soap opera that starts like that. That'd be amazing.
I would love it, honestly. Yeah, it was a good time. Just to also add some tension to our theorizing about this weird mystery ship. So this episode, the title is a riff off of a Harlan Ellison short story, I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream, which is a sci-fi dystopian Cold War type situation. So maybe there's a clue to this ship that is destroying everything.
We'll see. We'll see.
Potentially. I don't know. Just thought it was a fun reference. Just reiterating again, if anyone wants to send me a moopsie, I will send you an address because I'm not crafty. And I'm obsessed and I need a plushie right away in my life. Anything else y'all want to say about I Have No Bones Yet I Must Flee?
No, I think we got it. Like, I think this is a really good start to the season. Like, if there is better, I could not come up with it. Like we're at S tier level.
Yeah, it's really firing on all cylinders. It's also exciting to see. There's been a lot of I think who wrote this episode. Aaron Burdett, this is his first written by credit for Lower Decks. I think he started out as like a writer's assistant and has moved up. So like, I just like shouting out shows that seem to be, doing things right by their writers and their staff in wake of the strike, and also terrible things coming out about other showrunners and comedy places of work. Megan Lloyd, who directed this episode, started out as a boards illustrator. So, it's nice to see people who've been working on this show for a long time getting to rise the ranks, as they should, as the entertainment industry should do. Studios, pay everyone, support the strike. Also, I think last week I had said there was the Star Trek strike happening, and I said it was last week. It's actually tomorrow. It is tomorrow. It is September 8th for Star Trek Day. Which makes more sense why it's planned for that day. So there are pickets that you can join on the West Coast and the East Coast. And we've been tweeting that information on our account.
Myrriah, have you ever been to a Star Trek Day?
I have been to a Star Trek Day, but that was run by Paramount Plus, and I'm not supporting the studios currently. So
yeah.
I did see they're having some programming, I think was all pre-taped, which
like pre-strike, I guess.
Yeah, it has to be pre. Well, I did notice a lot of the people doing stuff were like drag queens, but I know one of the drag queens in SAG, so I don't know. And then like a lot of the Lower Decks people, so I don't know if they just like Jerry O'Connell is hosting, I think.
But like Jerry O'Connell, still like it's still SAG. It's not.
Yeah, I don't know.
The writing is IATSE, but like the anyway.
Part of what Paul is getting at is last year on Star Trek Day, Myrriah got to go and do fun stuff.
Yeah,
and I missed it, and now I may never get to do it again because the studios are the studios.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God, Clyde! I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to imply
rub
that at
salt
all.
in the wound.
I'm just saying, hopefully, sooner than later, the studios will come back to the bargaining table and will give our writers and our actors what they deserve. Although an IATSE strike is also coming in the next couple of weeks. So we shall see, but I hope all of these workers who make all of the things that we love get their fair share and the payments that they deserve. And by next year, we can have a really great time at Star Trek Day because everyone is making money.
Right. You and me, Myrriah.
We're going to make it happen. Yes. Anyway, you can see us again next week. We will be back live on Thursday on YouTube. The audio episodes will be dropping on the weekend. And we will continue talking about Lower Decks. You can subscribe, rate, and review on Apple. You can also leave us 5 stars on Spotify. Visit StarTrekPod.co for links to all of those places, as well as to our Patreon. Clyde, can you remind people where we are on Twitter? Or I guess X, whatever it's called now.
That thing that people send messages and DMs to, you can reach us at Star Trek Pod.
Indeed. Thank you, Karen, for helping us out. We appreciate you for running that space for us. And we will see you all next week on Star Trek Discovery Pod. Live long and prosper. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Laters.